Bloomberg Tech is live from coast to coast with Caroline Hyde in New York and Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
This is Bloomberg Tech. Coming up, Mark Zuckerberg personally assembling a superintelligence team to help Meta hit artificial general intelligence.
Plus, Apple expands its relationship with OpenAI and introduces a new software redesign called Liquid Glass. We'll recap WWDC.
And we speak with the ULA CEO about the spat between Elon Musk and Donald Trump and what it means for the space industry.
But first, we check out what's happening in the markets. Some cautious trading. We've got big bond sales, $58 billion of three-year debt coming due. We keep an eye on what the yields are doing, but we also keep an eye on what's happening in London, China, US. The talks continue. We're clinging on to gains, up about 0.1%. Remember, the S&P near a record high, Ed. What are you looking at?
Our top story, and that is Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg assembling this super intelligence team. Bloomberg reporting, citing sources, that he wants 50 people. He wants them sitting close to him at HQ, all to go after AGI. And in Meta's case, the stock kind of up with the focus of the markets on trade talks right now. But this is very much, Caro, founder mode activated.
Let's dig in on the founder mode. Bloomberg's Kurt Wagner joins us now, who helped break down this story. And it feels as though Mark Zuckerberg is rallying his troops. He's got his own personal WhatsApp for this, well, party, he calls it.
That's right. We've been told that he's essentially more involved in recruiting for this team than he has ever been at the company in more than 20 years. This is something that has, he's had a fire lit under him back in April when their Llama 4 model was released, and quite frankly, disappointed people, right? Not only disappointed experts outside the company who are reviewing the model, but disappointed people internally. And we're told that Zuckerberg at that time really said, okay, I need to be heavily involved. I need to go out and recruit these people myself to get the absolute best talent. And that is what he has spent his last 2 months doing, literally hosting people at his homes in Palo Alto and Lake Tahoe to try and close these deals and sign these AI experts and scientists.
I've been hearing for a while that Meta's offering like salaries of $2 million plus to a lot of engineering talent, but Mark Zuckerberg is doing the phone calls, right? The question now is, what is the motivation, Meta versus the rest of the field when it comes to the pursuit of AGI?
Yeah, everyone's going after AGI, and the way it was described to me by someone the other day is, look, it doesn't matter if you're the third person, the third company to get to AGI. It only matters if you're first, right? Not only is that going to be a feather in your cap for future recruiting, for, kind of the symbolism of being the first company to get there, but it's also going to give you a massive head start as, for your products. So if Meta is to get their first Meta AI's chatbot is going to be more widely adopted, their Ray-Ban glasses will be more widely adopted. So the idea of getting to AGI is a massive race because of all of these other implications. And that's one of the reasons that Zuckerberg, who is super, super competitive, by the way, that's why he's putting himself at the forefront of this effort at Meta right now.
Shares been winning, up 19% if you're looking at the competitive streak, Kurt. But what about Scale AI and the investment there? How does it fit in?
Yeah, so as we reported over the weekend, a multi-billion-dollar investment is expected to go into Scale AI. I think there's sort of two parts to this. One, there's the investment in what Scale AI is doing as a business, the tech, also the sort of relationships that they've developed with the government and having clients like that, I think is something that's appealing to Meta, who has not historically been in that line of business. But I think there's also a recruiting element to this story, right? Alex Wang, the CEO of Scale AI, is expected to join this new superintelligence team that we reported about last night. I believe there are other Scale AI employees who will probably contribute to this team as well. So there's sort of a sharing of talent as well that I think is a part of this expected deal, which I imagine we may hear about sometime in the very near future.
Kurt, when Zuckerberg is inviting these engineers into his homes, like in Lake Tahoe, what is his pitch? What are sources saying that he thinks Meta is doing well, or what Meta has an advantage in over the rest of the field?
He's leaning quite heavily into Meta's resources. He's from what we've heard, he's talked about the cash flow at the company, the strong advertising business, and the fact that they have the tens of billions of dollars on hand to go pursue these very expensive AI improvements, right? A lot of the other companies, Ed, as you know, they're out raising money, they're out fundraising constantly to try and get that cash flow in the building. Meta already has that. So he's out saying, look, we have the resources. I'm giving you the runway to do all of this stuff. Come work for me where you will never want for anything, essentially, right? So a big part of the push is Meta is a financial behemoth here who can actually get this thing done.
Behemoth. Wish we had more time to discuss that. Bloomberg's Kurt Wagner, Thank you very much. Sticking with AI, Apple introduced AI-powered features at its developers conference, including an expanded relationship with OpenAI, but a new software redesign called Liquid Glass with a transparent menu and a glassy look. Bloomberg's Mark Gurman has all the details. In our discussion with Apple WWDC, we say that Liquid Glass is the most significant design overhaul for an OS interface ever. What did you make of it, and what do we need to know?
Yeah, so the significance of this interface change is how broad it is, right? It's available on all of Apple's devices. This is the first time they're doing a user interface revamp across all of the devices. And it's also interesting because it sets the stage for future Apple devices, right? In terms of hardware, the Apple devices are going to get more glassy, right? You're going to see curved glass edges on the 20th anniversary iPhone in 2 years. So having an all-glass interface with a lot of transparency sets the stage for that. And so from that standpoint, it's great. I've been using the new UI on all of my devices since yesterday when the betas came out. And I think it's really great. And I think it's also going to improve dramatically between now and September when it's all released. And so if you're a developer and you have an extra phone or you want to take a little bit of a risk, I would encourage anyone to try out the new look.
So that's cool. But why are then analysts like Angelo Zeno saying this whole event was a dud? Why is there such a deafening silence around Siri, for example, Mark?
Well, because Wall Street basically cares about buzzwords, because buzzwords are what get the share price moving in either direction. And you didn't hear a whole lot, as we anticipated and talked about in advance, about AI or Siri. Apple is essentially taking an AI gap year at the worst possible time. They're not promising any new AI features right now. I don't anticipate that they're going to start doing so again until June of 2026. Apple Intelligence obviously was a flop. They're doing their best to try to show people that they are here too with AI without going too far and making these promises. What they have done is partnered with ChatGPT on a few more features. So you can take a screenshot now and ChatGPT can analyze what's on your screen. Of course, you could have done that with the app already, but this is a bit of a shortcut. And then they have new developer tools that tap into third-party LLMs, including ChatGPT. But yeah, to be clear, as we've been talking about, the fact that Apple is nowhere near any of its competition in AI is a massive failure on all levels.
The stock fell 1.2% yesterday, Monday. It's now up around 1.2%. So we've kind of balanced out the trading in this market's more to do with trade talks than, I guess, anything idiosyncratic. I found probably the most significant piece of news relevant to WWDC to be that access for third-party developers to on-device LLMs. Because you think about the app store that we have today and the ecosystem across operating systems, the whole point of WWDC, Mark, is the developers, right? Explain that piece of news and why the developer community cheered it.
So the foundation models that are available for Apple's own AI features are now available to third-party developers. So there are frameworks and software tools now for developers to build their own AI features. So this will be making it easier than ever for developers, by the way, there's millions of them on the Apple platforms, to develop AI features for their own apps. But just a step back, in terms of the features themselves, right? Most consumers who use these devices just want them to be better, want them to be easier. And so Apple went after the core competencies. If you look at the 3 apps that were revamped and improved yesterday, the 3 were Safari, Phone, and Camera, which are probably the most used apps on most people's iPhones. And then 2 additional apps that got a little bit of love were Photos and Messages, which probably round out the top 5. They weren't as significant as the first 3. So Apple made major improvements to the apps that people are using every day. For iPad users, the new iPad operating system finally makes the iPad like a computer, right? And so that is a huge feature that people, including myself, have been asking for years. So there's a lot of us in the Apple community who are actually pretty thrilled with the improvements that were made. But taking a step back, still, this is focusing on these OS franchises that have been around for decades, rather than pushing us into these next generation interfaces based around AI. So you have to juggle both. Apple's doing a great job managing the current, but we've not seen a lot that's giving us confidence about the future.
Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, we thank you so much on the Apple Roundup. Meanwhile, let's just look at what Alphabet, the parent company of Google, is up to in terms of its stock climbing following a report from Reuters that it has signed a deal to provide cloud services to OpenAI. OpenAI will use the additional computing capacity for training and running its models. Both companies declining to comment to Reuters. It's a game of frenemies, Ed.
OK, coming up, trade talks resume in London between the United States and China. We're going to have the latest details next. This is Bloomberg Tech.
We are doing well with China. China's not easy. We want to open up China, and if we don't open up China, maybe we won't do anything, but we want to open up China. It'll be a great thing for China, a great thing for the rest of the world.
That was President Trump commenting after the first day of trade talks between the US and China in London. And day 2 is now underway. Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Horden joins us from London. AMH, what do we need to know?
Well, what you need to know is at the moment, there is no update. We do see both delegations having another day of trade talks. They did have a break around 2 o'clock local time. They have been back at the negotiating table inside Lancaster House. We were waiting to hear for potentially any breakouts in terms of the United States getting what they want, which is an advanced pace of rare earths and magnets, and the Chinese side getting a bit of an easing of export controls, which is what Kevin Hassett, the NEC director, had said. At the moment, talks are still ongoing, but there is really a time clock to this because Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has to be back on Capitol Hill tomorrow. He is testifying in front of the House Ways and Means Committee, so they really are in a time crunch to wrap up these negotiations.
Talking of timing, Anne-Marie, an interestingly timed piece in the People's Daily over in China, the front page, Huawei founder saying, look, these restrictions on us, they're not so bad.
Right, and that's what a lot of people were talking about, remember, during DeepSeek. And this is something that the NVIDIA CEO, Jensen Huang, had said to me when I caught up with him briefly before he had that meeting a month or so ago with Donald Trump in the Oval Office, the President of the United States. Obviously, they likely were probably going to talk about their chip controls. And he told Ed recently that China has become quite formidable and that China is neck and neck, really, with the United States. They are not far behind. And that's really what the Huawei founder was saying in this local daily. It is really notable that in these talks in London, very different than the talks 4 weeks ago in Geneva, that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is here. It means that those chips potentially, those export controls are on the table.
Anne-Marie Horden doing amazing work in London. We really appreciate it. Look, let's just check in on how Chinese stocks have reacted to all of this. They have been volatile. We've been higher early in trade, but at the beginning it really was down and down. We remain in the red once again. This is as the trade talks, as we say, have been resuming. You're seeing Golden Dragon Index, the Nasdaq Golden Dragon Index, off by 0.3% as we speak. Alibaba off by 0.8. JD off by more than a percentage point. Tiffany Wade is here, I'm pleased to say, Senior Portfolio Manager at Columbia Threadneedle Investments, manages a cool $621 billion in assets. Tiffany, how much is riding on these days of talks? How much do you think ultimately does make a decision for you within your portfolio?
Yeah, I think we've seen the market react really well over the last couple of weeks to certainly a reduction in some of the tariffs on China and other countries as well. This would be very critical, I think, especially for the tech sector, especially talking about export restrictions. There's certainly parts of the tech sector like NVIDIA, most recently the electronic design automation companies that have been very hurt by export restrictions and tariffs. So for certain pockets of the market, I think this would be very impactful to see some of these trade negotiations play out.
Tiffany, how much of a risk premium is the president? When you look at any corner of the technology market and you say, I am going to bet on a company that this president has recently spoken favorably about or not favorably about, as the case may be, I'm talking, of course, about the volatility that he brings to any trade negotiation.
Yeah, I think it creates a lot of pause when you're thinking about companies that may be in focus from the president. Companies that have been talked about or sectors that have been talked about recently. But, the worry as an investor is what will happen next that we haven't planned for or that we didn't see coming. So I think that, companies that have been spoken about, have been targeted, are reflecting a bit of a risk premium. And you see this in a lot of the tech companies that are trading, at discounts to where they were trading over the last couple of years, certainly relative to their own multiples, but also relative to the index as well. So I think that's reflected in some of the stocks. But again, the concern is what happens next, because it's hard to predict.
Boy, does Tim Cook want to know what happens next as well. And his own stock trading below usual multiples. They've been in the eye of the storm when it comes to the supply chain side of things. What do you make of the desire to make companies ultimately build in the US, but perhaps be less profitable? Does that make them as appetizing as an investment?
It certainly doesn't. It hurts the profit margins, as you mentioned. I think it'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out, because it takes multiple years to build a factory here. It probably takes longer than President Trump is going to be in office. So do the announcement we've seen from companies building here, maybe some of them make sense economically, maybe some of them are paying lip service to the administration. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But it's interesting that Apple specifically has been a little bit more defiant.
More defiant, but also perhaps more distracted is what people worry about. The fact that they are not playing catch up to this AI game as people had hoped with WWDC. What did you make of the event?
Yeah, I thought the event was a little bit disappointing for Apple. We were expecting to hear more exciting updates around Apple Intelligence, around AI, maybe around AI being incorporated into Siri. And instead, I think we saw more updates on improving the user interface, more features on existing applications. The applications that maybe incorporate the most AI would be their updates on visual intelligence or live translation. But those also feel like they're playing a little bit of catch up versus applications that are already in the market from other providers.
On my Bloomberg terminal, Apple seems to be the top holding in the Columbia Large Cap Growth Fund. So let me know if that's right. But I think so far this year, Apple has been trading on trade risk, right, on tariff risk. And when we were literally in the car on the way to Apple WWDC, we were asking ourselves, has this name started trading on that AI concern yet or not?
I think we've seen that a little bit around the WWDC event, and we certainly saw that after the event yesterday, where people were a little bit disappointed that there wasn't a big AI announcement coming out of the keynote presentation. So I think we're seeing that a little bit, but Apple, like a lot of big tech companies, I think are still trying to figure out their strategy around AI and are putting a lot of money behind it.
Tiffany, you set yourself up for this by saying the big question is what happens next. For the technology sector, what happens next?
I think we're still very positive on the tech sector for the rest of the year. There's a lot of good tailwinds for the sector. Obviously, tariffs and export restrictions could come out of left field for the rest of the year. But there's a lot of good tailwinds for earnings growth, including AI investment that continues to be very strong across multiple parts of the market. If we look at earnings growth expectations for the rest of the year or for the full year, the tech sector is still expected to grow much faster than the rest of the market. And as I mentioned before, a lot of the valuations across certain subgroups of tech look very attractive versus their history. So we're still very positive on the sector.
And are you positive on the commitment of capital coming from these companies? Look at what Mark Zuckerberg's doing, devoting his own time, his own dining table, but also sheer quantities of cash to make sure that he tries to win AGI, as it's known.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's not alone. Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, Amazon are all making huge investments into AI, and I think that has a great knock-on effect for parts of the semiconductor equipment, parts of software, other parts of the economy, including industrials, that all feed into that AI infrastructure.
Tiffany Wade of Columbia Threadneedle Investments, thank you very much. Now, coming up, Uber and Wayve plan to test robotaxis in London. We have more on that next. This is Bloomberg Tech.
Uber and Wayve. They are set to plan their first trial run of fully autonomous vehicles in London. It's a move that could pave the way for commercial robotaxi services in the United Kingdom. Let's get on what this really means with Andrew Grant of Bloomberg NEF. And really your focus and analysis here is what London means for the growth story of robotaxis more broadly. Why is it difficult to trial run there?
Well, I mean, let me start by saying that London is a big market for Uber. They often cite it as one of their 5 most important cities globally in their earnings calls and their reports. So this is a big development that they are working with their partners to start deploying planning to deploy robotaxis in London. But these types of streets are different from where we've seen the majority of robotaxis in the past. Places like Phoenix, Arizona, Austin, Texas, where you have varying weather conditions, roads that haven't been around for nearly as long as some of the London streets, which have their own quirks.
You lead our coverage of mobility, right, at BNEF, and you know that in any robo-taxi setup, you have the self-driving tech, hardware, software, somebody owns the vehicle, somebody operates the ride-hailing app, and somebody manages the fleet. I'm looking at this announcement from Uber and Wayve, and I think there's a few names and pieces missing.
Yeah, exactly. In a robotaxi service, it really does take a village. You need different parts of this value chain that are going to contribute different skill sets and different capital requirements and different payoff periods. So if you are looking at what is essentially a partnership here between 2 tech companies, Wayve and Uber, that mostly work with software, there's a few other players that need to manage the hardware and manage the on-the-ground operations. So as you mentioned, that will be things like people, like a company that will actually end up owning the vehicle. And in the past, Uber's been a bit hesitant to own and operate large fleets of vehicles, but they have shown that they are willing to take over some of the operational aspects with some of their partnerships. For instance, their partnership with Waymo in Austin, some of their partnership with WeRide, which is underway in the United Arab Emirates, where they're taking over some of the fleet operating aspects. But you did right there, Ed. We're missing kind of who's going to own these fleets, who they're going to work with on the charging side, if they are electric vehicles, which they do seem likely to be at this stage, and all the other details around maintenance and repair of these vehicles as they function as robotaxis.
Andrew Grant of Bloomberg NEF. Needs our mobility coverage. We really appreciate it. Now some breaking news for you, because talks are ongoing in London. And according to US official, US and China trade talks will continue. We're going to bring you any details of what is being discussed at the moment. Anne-Marie Horden has been outside, of course, Lancaster, and been thinking about how these talks are evolving. What ultimately it means, Ed, for the focus on semiconductors in particular. What have we got coming up?
Okay, we're going to be joined by Tory Bruno, United Launch Alliance CEO, to discuss the outlook for the space business in the midst of Trump and Elon's spat. This is Bloomberg Tech.
Welcome back to Bloomberg Tech. I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco. When I look at technology markets right now, it's kind of the Mag 7, those big mega cap tech names that are driving the narrative. Part of that's because investors keep an eye on trade talks in London, but there are some idiosyncratic items, some news items. We talked earlier about the reports of OpenAI looking to Alphabet and Google for more cloud capacity. That's a driver. Tesla is also markedly higher. Lots of you are waiting to see if we do or do not get news of a robotaxi launch in Austin this week. But there are also some stock downgrades that the market is looking past because those shares are higher. That's my Mag 7 index, up 0.7%, Caro.
Now let's shine a light on what ARC CEO Kathy Woodard, longtime Tesla bull, Ed, says the firm is pretty used to the volatility. She still thinks Tesla is the largest AI project on Earth right now. Speaking at Bloomberg's Tom McKenzie at the Greenwich Economic Forum in London, she weighed in on the impact of the feud between Elon Musk and President Trump.
I think it clearly went way too far. But I think, and we've been watching it carefully, now we sold, after the election, roughly $500 million worth, still our largest position, but we are so used to this volatility, so we use it to our advantage. And we've been buying back into, it's been a, in the world of technicians, a 50% retracement. So buying back into that, and that seems to be working.
Let's dive some more into that spat between Elon Musk and Donald Trump and how that's impacting the business of space. Tory Bruno is the United Launch Alliance CEO, and he joins us now. And Tory, I was interested to see something hit my inbox, which is the moment that Elon Musk threatened to decommission Dragon, which was a response to the President of the United States threatening to cancel government contracts of some of Elon Musk's companies, you made the argument that now is the time to talk and realize that we need many more options for space beyond SpaceX, which dominates commercial payload from Earth to orbit. Do you believe that you are one such option?
Well, of course we are. In the government space, we are the primary competitor to SpaceX. And also, we are the major supplier to Amazon's Kuiper constellation, which will offer competition in the LEO-based internet market.
Did you hear from Pentagon officials amid the blow-up, Tory, to get specific?
We're in constant conversations with our customers in the Pentagon. And, I don't know any more than you guys do about how all of that will turn out. I'm sure those gentlemen will sort it out between them. But it does point out, as you alluded to, Ed, how important it is, given a growing commercial sector and the challenges we face in space from China, that we have a broad industrial base with multiple companies in a competitive environment to support that ever-growing need.
That ever-growing need, you mentioned Kuiper, for example. Give us an update of just how many launches you think you're going to be doing this year, which vehicles you're going to be using, Tory.
Well, this year we'll be flying both our Heritage Atlas vehicle, which we have flown actually twice, once as a demo, but once now with 27 Kuipers on orbit, and our Vulcan, our brand new vehicle. The next launch will be another Atlas, and then we're going to pivot back to the United States government to do a couple of national security space launches with Vulcan. And then after that, we'll come right back to Amazon with another Vulcan. That's important because Vulcan is almost two Atlases. It's 45 spacecraft versus 27. And then as fast as we can have satellites and availability on the range, we'll fly several more times before the end of the year.
I think that's the question I get for you most, Tory. There is actually a lot of interest in Vulcan. Specifically, when will Vulcan fly again? And what are the kind of challenges right now for the arc of the rest of the year against the goals you set yourself for Vulcan?
Yeah, well, Vulcan has just finished its development. We've flown 2 missions. We are now certified for national security. We are also prepared for the commercial launches. The customers have not yet announced their launch dates, and we always let them do that first. But I can tell you that it'll be very soon. It'll be this summer when we fly Vulcan again, and we'll be flying it into the fall and into the winter as well.
Tory, you just gave Caroline the answer several. Could I hold you to a number, please? Be that high single digits, 5, 10? Get specific for me, please.
It'll be single digits. Yeah, I can't give you a specific number because we have to request launch dates on the range, which has now become kind of a crowded place because of all this wonderful commercial activity. And it's too early to know when all of those slots will be available. But I can tell you it'll be less than probably 10 more missions this year, but high single digits.
Tory, you've been perhaps faced with some criticism coming from the Air Force earlier in the year, the assessment that perhaps there was subpar performance meeting some of the key goals. And I'm interested in that you've really been focused in this. You've been focused on getting the engineering talent and the force that you need there to make up for it, the management focus as well, Tory. What is the limiting factor when it comes to your engineering capacity? What is it that means that you can't fire on all cylinders, pun the pun?
This is really a typical development journey where we're doing a all-new heavy-class launch vehicle. We had hoped to be done with it before the end of last year. It took us just a little bit longer. We had a delay in our upper stage when we had a structural failure way back early last year that we had to recover from. And then when we flew our second certification flight, we lost the nozzle off of one of our solid rocket motors that are added on, strapped on. You know, interestingly enough, the mission itself was perfect. It was the most accurate insertion we've ever done. But nonetheless, those two things delayed us finishing up development, which we've now come through and are on the other side. I'll tell you that I have developed some 36 systems over the last 4 decades. This actually is one of the cleanest ones I've ever been through or have seen, but it just took a little bit longer to get to where we are today.
Tory, I want to go back to the origin of our discussion, which was Elon Musk's threat to decommission Dragon. Let's just state the basic fact that SpaceX absolutely dominates human and non-human payload to orbit.
Mm-hmm.
How bad would that be? I mean, we're basically talking about taking away an apparatus that America depends on to get to space right now.
It would, for a period of time, a certain number of months, put us back in a position of being dependent upon the Russians to go to and from the space station. But it's not a permanent impact to the program should that have happened, because there is another program, the Boeing Starliner, also known as CST-100, that has had a demo flight, and they actually carried crew to the space station once already. It had some problems with some thrusters and some valving. Those are being sorted out, and NASA has said they expect it to begin flying again in early 2026. So we would have a gap where we're dependent on the Russians until that's available. After that vehicle, there's a company called Sierra Space that will take cargo to and from with their Dream Chaser vehicle. It's a very cool vehicle, lifting body, kind of looks like a small futuristic space shuttle. That will also transition to human transport as well, but a little bit later.
Tory, last year the reports were that ULA was subject to acquisition, right? That Blue Origin might be a potential bidder. What's the latest on the future of this group, this JV, and the relationship with Blue, who is supposed to also be providing you with engines?
Well, like any M&A kind of question, I'm never allowed to speculate, talk, or answer anything about that. I can tell you that ULA is a very sound company. It, as I said, it's the primary competitor to SpaceX here in the United States. There's only currently 2 domestic launch providers in this class, soon to be a third with Blue Origin. So it's a great company, and I wish I owned it. But beyond that, I really can't talk about anything that would be an M&A.
Tory Bruno, United Launch Alliance CEO. Great to have you back here on Bloomberg Tech. Thank you. Caro.
Ed, it's time now for Talking Tech. And first up, TSMC reported a surge in revenue in May, jumping 40% after the company stockpiled chips in response to trade uncertainty. Now, the main chip supplier, of course, NVIDIA and Apple, saw revenue reach $10.7 billion. Last week, TSMC CEO reaffirmed the company's sales will grow in the mid-20% range in 2025. Plus, Cisco is updating its lineup of networking and security products in an effort to make AI networks speedier, more secure. New generation of switches from the network equipment maker is said to offer a 10-fold improvement in performance, could prevent bottlenecks when transferring data. And Coinbase co-founder Fred Urson, he's launching his own brain health startup called Nudge. Now, the Silicon Valley billionaire has hired at least 8 people who used to work at Elon Musk's Neuralink and intends to build a consumer headset-like product that aims to treat brain disease and improve mood and sleep, Ed.
All right, coming up, as France's startup conference Viva Tech kicks off in Paris, we'll tell you about some of the European startups working on groundbreaking technology. This is Bloomberg Tech.
Bloomberg and Founders Forum, well, they've joined forces to highlight the European companies and founders aiming to have an impact on a global scale, creating a list of 25 Euro startups to watch. Here with more is Bloomberg's Mark Bergen. Look, we've just been discussing space with ULA, so drive into the first one. Exploration Co. is one of them, female-led, and looking at space, right?
Yeah, a fascinating company, kind of Franco-German, French founder with headquarters in Germany, funding from both countries. It's a rarity. This an indication, especially since the U.S. election and Elon Musk's prominence in politics, there's a lot more urgency to have alternatives to Starlink, alternatives to SpaceX in Europe. They're trying to build this sort of reusable capsule, much like the Starlink Dragon system, the SpaceX Dragon system. And this has been an area where Europe has frankly been pretty far behind. And certainly, the term that's talked about both in political circles and investing circles is sovereignty. And the exploration companies is that kind of startup that promises this European sovereignty.
I think when we think Europe, we've increasingly talked about Mistral, right? But there's a lot more happening. And that's the whole point of this exercise and this reporting. Quantum Systems, for example, is one that I know you're keen to talk about. What are they doing? What are you learning? And what is the interest from investors, not just in Europe, but around the world?
Yeah, Quantum Systems is a fascinating company. It's been around for almost a decade, working primarily on kind of drones for reconnaissance, surveillance. It's had this big, successful, from what we can tell, done pretty well as servicing Ukraine mostly via the German military. Has been shipping tons of these units. Pretty active in Ukraine. I think there are a lot of companies that have been accused of being kind of tourists in Ukraine since the war broke out. It seems like Quantum Systems actually has legitimate techs and products that are used in the front line.
All right, Bloomberg's Mark Bergen out of London. Thank you very much. We turn now to our VC spotlight. Notable Capital has been at the forefront of some of tech's most influential companies, helping to guide 11 of its portfolio companies from an idea to an IPO. For more, Glenn Solomon, notable managing partner, joins us here in San Francisco on set. It's a nice way to think about it, from idea to IPO. But, that's the history of Silicon Valley, right? That's what every founder sets out to do. Among those 11, what are you most proud of? What was the sort of steepest arc, would you say?
Ed, great to be here. We've at Notable really built our business around focusing on the founder. And I think that the primary lesson we've learned from the successes we've had is that if we serve founders really well, if we provide them with a unique experience, if we support them, because starting companies is really hard and building them even harder. And so if we focus on founders, we'll do okay. And it's worked well. It's been a winning formula for us to date.
We're showing some of the portfolio companies, like these are long-standing, well-known names, not just amongst the venture community, but around the world now, right, because of their customer base. But what's happening right now in founding companies and backing at the earlier stages is not just AI, but particularly everything to do with agentic and that infrastructure layer. What are you doing in that space?
Yeah, so we are overweight and focused on software infrastructure, on cloud infrastructure, precisely for this reason. We're seeing agents as the next wave of AI really having a huge impact on companies large and small in all industries across every geo right now. Agents are coming into companies, and these are non-humans who are helping with building software. They're helping with other functions like sales, like customer support and success. They're even getting into things like helping with security, helping with HR and finance. So it's really throughout organizations that we're seeing agents play a major role. And agents, just like humans, need infrastructure. Human beings as employees need infrastructure to be successful. So do agents. They need to be secured. They need to be monitored. You need to make sure that they're actually doing what you want them to do. So that's where we're focusing, because the opportunity is quite large, and we're seeing quite a bit of acceleration for our companies focused in this area.
Glenn, many will know you, but Notable Capital, the name, is still relatively new, born about a year ago after you split GGV between the Asia part of the business focus and then what you're doing now, looking at US, Israel, Latin America, Europe. Where is the hive of activity for you right now? Because it feels as though the US just dominates from a generative AI perspective.
Yeah, so AI is central to just about every investment we're making these days, Caroline. But I would say that while Silicon Valley is the center of the universe as it relates to innovation, particularly around AI, there are a whole web of global founders, like you say, folks in Israel, folks in Europe, folks in Latin America. What binds them to us and what gets them excited, I think, about working with Notable is that we've really built our business around helping them build global companies. And if you want to build a global technology company, you got to start in the U.S. So we're helping entrepreneurs, whether they're in the U.S. as U.S. citizens or immigrants, first generation, folks outside the U.S., all building for the U.S. market. They may be building their products, engineering, product, and staffing those functions outside the U.S. But when it comes to go to market, they're focused on building in the U.S. And that's where Notable has really tried to distance ourselves from the field. And I think we're doing a good job. How,
Therefore, is the talent pool? Is that something that's keeping your founders up at night when you're thinking about the scale of immigrant talent and some of the pressure that's being put on it in the United States at the moment? Is that a worry, or can you keep the bases more geographically split?
I think that the talent market today in technology is complex. What you're seeing with agents is agents are taking jobs, in entry-level areas. But I think the opportunity for folks earlier in their careers and recent graduates is to embrace and extend with AI and become really strong users and proponents of technologies like that. They can move faster. They can actually be very successful as employees in technology companies, and that's what we're seeing. There's really a lot of expertise, certainly in the Bay Area, but expertise is diffusing rapidly, and I think the next set of real innovative companies in AI over the coming years will be global in nature.
Glenn Solomon, it's great to have you on. Come back soon, we hope, of Notable Capital. Appreciate it. Coming up, spying scandal that is roiling the HR software market. We'll tell you about the accusations and the upcoming court case next. This is Bloomberg Tech. HR software makers deal Rippling. They are set to meet in a California court this fall to hash out their dueling charges of corporate espionage. Bloomberg's Kate Clark has been reporting an ongoing saga. Can you briefly get us up to date with the tit for the tat, what they're accusing each other of here?
Yes, so both companies have accused each other of spying on one another. And just last week, both have amended their original lawsuits to add some even more explosive claims. But to catch everyone up, basically Rippling, which is a $16 billion startup, is accusing Deal of having a spy for months take information from their Slack and send it directly to the CEO of Deal, all alleged.
Kate, this is taking place kind of around the world. Can you give us a sense of where these arguments are happening and the characters and individuals that are involved?
Yes, so the key person at the center of this is a man named Keith O'Brien, who lives in Dublin and who worked for Rippling and allegedly spied on behalf of Deal. There's also parts of this story which you can read that take place in Dubai, that take place in San Francisco, so it certainly is a global saga.
A global saga with big VCs behind either proponent. What has the venture community made of this? What has other founders made of this?
It's funny, it really depends who you ask. So many people I spoke to defended it, said, that's Silicon Valley. There's spies everywhere. Every company has spies. And of course, many of Rippling's investors are saying this is criminal. This should never be tolerated. So it's actually not as straightforward as you might expect.
Kate, the question we ask ourselves in the Bloomberg Tech newsroom every day, what happens next?
Well, we'll see. I mean, so Deal filed their amended complaint last week. They actually have not served Rippling yet, according to a statement from Rippling, which is, we'll wait and see, and we don't really know what that means. But otherwise, the two will continue duking it out this summer and are expected to be in court this fall.
And when you say duking it out, in which court and where? Just remind us.
Well, there are a few different ones. So they have various legal filings in Ireland. There is a Delaware lawsuit, and there are also legal exchanges occurring in the state of California.
It's a deeply, deeply reported piece and update in Bloomberg Business Week with Kate Clark and our colleague Ellen Hewitt. It's a must-read. Thank you very much. Now, that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Tech.
Do not forget to check out our podcast. You can find it on the terminal as well as online on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeart. From New York, from San Francisco, with a rather nice new look to the show. This is Bloomberg Tech.